Hello there, kia ora. On Wednesday, Stats NZ released its latest employment data, and unsurprisingly, it's not good. Unemployment is now at the highest level it's been in almost a decade, surpassing the level hit at the height of the pandemic and matching with the level from December 2016, with 160,000 Kiwis now out of work. That's the equivalent of everyone in Tauranga being unemployed, and the highest number of people unemployed in 30 years. Oh, and that's just the Kiwis that have stayed here, not the ones that have been part of the largest exodus of New Zealanders on record, 47,900 people in the 12 months to August this year. And of course, there are harder hit groups within those stats. People in Auckland and Gisborne saw significant jumps in unemployment. People aged 14 to 34 saw big increases in unemployment, and wage growth continued to slow. And it's lower than the current inflation rate, which means Kiwis are finding it harder to make ends meet. It's been similar stories ever since the coalition got in, because while we were promised a laser focus on fixing the cost of living, what we got was a scattergun of culture war bullshit that has no purpose beyond forcing the ideologies of a few hard-right influencers mixed in with talks about OCR and interest rates. Just this week alone, we saw Erica Stanford announce that, without consultation, they were dropping the requirement for schools to meet Te Tiriti obligations, and David Seymour celebrated that and admitted it was his idea, and somehow made out that his phone was melting from all the poor parents who seemed to have the Deputy Prime Minister's direct line to cry about visits to the marae. As an announcement, it helps no one. It gives Don Brash and Hobson's pledge members the first pump of blood to long-forgotten parts of their body in decades, and has the potential to really harm kids who have grown up in environments where trips to the marae or speaking te reo Māori are connected to the way that they live, thrive, view the world, and themselves. And this was hot on the heels of reshaping the Teaching Council and replacing its members with ministerial appointees and removing its role in teacher training. Earlier this week, Winston Peters celebrated the removal of RSE in schools, with no replacement in mind, because of woke vice signalling. While media went nuts over the fact, he put a bill in the biscuit tin about banning fireworks that might never be pulled. But you'd never know it looking at the reporting. Tim Costley jumped back on Facebook to have a rant about road cones and council costs. And that was so full of incorrect information, he was fact-checked by local elected representatives within minutes, while Simeon announced 4 hospitals will be getting 140 new beds combined. But don't worry, because National wants more concerts at Eden Park, and the media is pushing multiple stories on the internal conflicts of Te Pāti Māori. Being in government is never a simple task. There's a million things to juggle for any party and its leaders, but when the way to help people during a crisis, which is seeing people suffer or leaving the country, is being, ignored, that feels like a real problem to the public. And there are ways that the government could help the situation. Setting a minimum wage increase at the inflation rate, for example. Instead, we've had 2 increases well below the inflation rate, totaling less than $1 increase in 2 years, meaning a real-world cut in income power for those that are on it, and from those businesses who use it to steer other wage increases within their organizations. They could stop punching down on beneficiaries. That punitive approach to people on benefits doesn't encourage people to get off a benefit, and a severe imbalance between rising unemployment numbers and the limited amount of work available means people are being punished for being in a position outside of their control. And in many cases, that imbalance is even wider because those numbers in, say, groups like young people are not going to be made any better by means testing 18 and 19-year-olds. Properly supporting people until we start to see those numbers of available jobs shift is the bare minimum our safety net social welfare system should be doing. We could be upskilling our workforce to be better equipped for changes in the future marketplace. It's a great idea, but it's really hard to do when you're shutting down tertiary institutions and vilifying them at the same time. That's also harming smaller communities because it leaves them without the tools to prepare people for change. They could regulate things like power companies, banks, supermarkets who keep posting record profits while we watch the necessary basics skyrocket in price month on month. They could drive the construction sector by getting back to building kāinga ora homes instead of selling them off as land to property developers, knowing that this is a pathway to help those currently homeless. And look at how the cruelty of shutting down emergency housing has led to an increase in homeless numbers, and how that impacts the ability for those in that situation to find a job, a place to call home, and to get the help that they need. And the research is all there. It's easy to find if they actually wanted to look at it. But they won't, because the people who are best off under the current settings are the ones who donate to the coalition parties or sit on the backbenches, the ones who promote them directly, whose pet projects and personal bugbears are made into policy, the ones who will be least impacted when there's no jobs and too many unemployed people for the jobs that are there. But hey, we'll have some fancy new roads. Rich old white racists won't be offended by pesky kupu te reo Māori that they never learned and have to make that everyone else's problem. Our kids won't be given the toolset in school to understand basic concepts around consent to help keep them safe. There'll be less road cones and maybe less fireworks. Because that sure seems like what getting the country back on track is to the current coalition, while the rest of us struggle to afford butter. And more people are out of work than since Ruth Richardson and her mother of all budgets decimated the low-income households of the country 30 years ago. Weird though, highest percentage of unemployed since the last national government, highest actual number of unemployed since the national government before that. There's got to be some kind of common theme between all of them to keep getting these kind of results. I wonder what it could be. Hey, thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. While you're here, why not hit that like button or share the video or even subscribe to the channel. You could even become a paid YouTube member so you can see things released in advance, you get access to some exclusive content, and like all these awesome people, you get to have your name at the end of the credits as well.